pleasure to welcome Iain Stevenson, who is the CEO of Comsol, to What's Next, and to a bit of perspective about what we're going to be talking about, because it is something that I've been following very closely over the last few years. And you know, the reality is that the South African market and the South African connectivity market seems to be very fragmented right now, and misunderstood by many. Now, take for example the concept of wireless, right? We all hear of these wireless technologies, and we've got so many different wireless technologies that are classified as wireless. There's Wi-Fi, there's mobile LTE, there's 5G, there's fixed LTE, there's, you know, and the list goes on. And let's not forget about fixed wireless access, which is FWA, licensed and unlicensed, and satellite, of course. Now, how does one even start or begin to choose a service or a package if there is such an intense complexity in terms of products going around there? And never mind the price wars that are happening out there as well, because the price wars are a reality amongst all the fibre providers, with a lot of their quality being exposed through their land grabs, and more frequently and recently we've seen load shedding impacting all of these services, and this is what we're encountering right now. So how does one choose a service or a package? Is it purely based on price, or is it based on the quality of service that is delivered? Now, the SA FNO market has been on a race to the bottom for many years now, and the effects of which many are experiencing with mass outages. And this is happening daily. I know from my aspect in fiber and wireless connectivity, there's no consistency. FNOs are compromising quality to reach price points that are commercially unfeasible, and have obviously forgotten that stable, always-on connectivity today is an essential critical service. Now, it's within this space and context that Commsol, it is within this space and context that Commsol can assist businesses with critical connectivity requirements, where fiber-like speeds are available, and that performance that you're looking for, that you want and you require, is available, and where businesses need to stay connected even in the darkest of blackouts over longer periods, and that are able to trade. So it's all about stability. So Iain, it's great to have you with us, and thank you for joining us. And I think that's a really good description of the market that we find ourselves in. But the big question is, how is Commsol able to keep connectivity alive where others are struggling? Surely Commsol deals with the same issues as I've discussed as everyone else?
Yeah, thank you, Aki. Great to be on your show. Yeah, exactly. We do have similar issues, but it's how we address them, it's how we deployed our infrastructure that effectively means what the end user eventually gets. So, for instance, yes, we rely on fiber backhaul for the connectivity of our base stations. And yes, we rely on Eskom power for our base stations in order to power to radiate and connect users within coverage. Now, the first thing is we're completely agnostic. We're not reliant on one fiber provider. We have around 4 or 5 on our books. And every single base station is backhauled via 2 different fiber providers, and in addition, we'll do our own backhaul to another base station as a third attempt at building redundancy into the network. So, if a fiber network provider backhaul has failed, generally we've got redundancy built in. So that's the first point: is the full redundancy. The second point is power. Yeah, what we've done is we deployed, when we built our network, we focused heavily on power. And what we did was lithium-ion battery redundancy, well over 2 days of autonomy on power. And wow, we deployed small form factor base stations. So we don't rely, the MNOs all deployed require cooling. So that's a big power drain, number one. Our core infrastructure that we deployed does not require cooling, and it's all DC based. So as a result, we've got a very, very small form factor tower base station enclosure. And what that means is, we're able to stay up over load shedding. So if we've got the backhaul and we've got the power, it means effectively the user is able to stay connected. And as long as they've got redundant power, it means their network's live. And that's what we're seeing. I mean, our connectivity is focused exclusively on the enterprise market. So that's businesses. And what we're seeing in that space is organizations, everything's becoming cloud centric. So organizations are reliant on the cloud. And as a result of that, there's a requirement for dual mediums. So if we're able to keep the connectivity live and they're getting the performance as if it's equivalent to what people are used to, as in fiber connectivity. I mean, people just associate speeds. Yes, it's like when you, the analogy is if you want to vacuum clean, you call it a Hoover. I mean, it's the analogy is you associated the brand Hoover with vacuum cleaning. The same thing goes with speed. People have associated reliable, stable comms with fiber, and it's just I've got fiber. And everybody's happy, but it's not necessarily. That's not the sole provider of stable connectivity.
That's such a great analogy you used there about the Hoover. We still use it. Absolutely, people say, I've got high-speed connectivity, I've got fiber. Not necessarily the case. But, if you look at a fixed wireless solution, it clearly sounds like an alternative connectivity solution in times like these. The redundancy that you spoke about. But there has been a question about the reliability of fixed wireless connectivity in the past. How does it compare to something like fiber, for example, which you just spoke about?
Yeah, I think the big issue here is it's also another misconception. This is the problem. Generally, in the past, historically, I'm going to go back a decade plus, is there were a lot of unlicensed networks deployed. So that's where people don't have licenses, so you're effectively using the Wi-Fi bands. And and a whole series of providers, ISPs, would build a network. And what happens is these networks would interfere with each other. So what was happening is people were getting very unstable, low capacity connectivity as a result of deployment on unlicensed networks. And that's the problem. FWA is a very, very broad term. Yes, it's fixed wireless access. Fixed, it's deployed at a specific point, so it's not mobile. Wireless, yes, it's wireless, but wireless, under the wireless banner, there's a whole host of different mediums, as in frequency mediums. So you've got the unlicensed bands, but you've also got the licensed bands. And even within the licensed bands, there's big differentials. You've got bands which are time division duplex, which are half duplex. And another analogy here is it's like it's a double lane road coming up to a single lane bridge and then a double lane road. That's half duplex. So you have to wait for each car to pass the bridge before you can move on. That's half duplex, time division duplex. And then you've got bands which are frequency division duplex, which means it's a double lane bridge, double lane road, double lane bridge, and the traffic moves. So you've got a lot less latency. Now, the bands that we deploy are all frequency division duplex. It means it's full duplex. It's a channel of frequency to deliver, a channel of frequency to receive. So you've got these. So it's equivalent to fiber optics. You've got two pairs of fiber. You've got to transmit and you've got to receive. We do the same over frequency, and it's licensed band. So what that means is we pay a license to ICASA on an annual basis, and nobody is able to broadcast in that same band. So it means we can engineer that we've got no interference, and we can guarantee from the base station to the end user, we can guarantee that they've got connectivity. So that means you've got an equivalence. So in an unlicensed environment or an LTE environment, you effectively are TDD, you half duplex. So you potentially sometimes don't get the performance and you get contention in the networks, but in our delivery, you don't.
Now, Iain, you've explained that so well because as a former traffic guy and understanding congestion, you've made it a lot more clearer as opposed to how data moves, and when there's congestion, there's problems. And when you're in an enterprise space, you cannot afford to have that kind of congestion. You need the data to be flowing smoothly. Now, you've touched a lot on the licensed spectrum and the unlicensed spectrum alternatives. How is licensed spectrum better than the unlicensed alternative, which are generally cheaper? I mean, let's be honest, the unlicensed ones are cheaper, but I guess you pay for what you get.
Well, yeah, I mean, okay. So you do pay for what you get. Number one is the main thing is you've got no interference. So you can guarantee the connectivity. But in a standards environment, so we've seen the advent of 5G now, and
Yes.
and we lived through 4G, and we're moving into the 5G world now. And what we are seeing that the cost per device is coming down. So the perception that unlicensed is cheaper is not necessarily the fact. The CPU price now is actually getting to the point of, when you're getting in a fixed wireless access environment, when you start getting below $100 for a CPE, subscriber unit, so the device that sits at the premises, you're starting to get into the world of where the connectivity is. We're going to be able to service South Africa, which is super unpenetrated. Now, there's a whole mixed perception about connectivity. People think that we are completely connected. There's many households that are not connected. The fibre network operators, specifically for FTTH, where connectivity to the home, have gone after the cream of the crop effectively, and they've gone for the higher ARPU markets. So that's all been serviced. But what about the lower LSM markets? And when you need to get to price points below, you're starting to see the guys starting to service that sub 200 Rand ARPU market. Now, the only way that's going to be feasible is when the CPE prices get to a point of where they are well below $100. And we're seeing that now, is we're below the $100 mark, and potentially we're going to be at the point of where it's sub 50, sub 40 US dollars. Yeah. So in the license space, it doesn't necessarily mean it's actually more expensive. It actually is cheaper because it's a mass-produced market worldwide. Supply and demand. So you've got millions of these devices being manufactured, and as a result, we get the benefit of a cheaper device.
Okay, now that makes perfect sense. You've explained that really well. Now, Comsol has been suggesting that in a cloud-centric and digitalization era, enterprises need to consider having a connective strategy. Now, why is this? Could you explain that to us?
I mean, every single application within an organization is now in the cloud. If you haven't got a cloud strategy in your business, I think you're behind the times. I mean, everything that we're doing now is cloud. I mean, exactly what here I am speaking to you through Riverside, which is a cloud-based app. I mean, it's not on my device. So you'll have the ERP, you'll have the payment platforms, you'll have everything within an organization in the cloud. Now, if you've got one point of failure in your network, if whatever you're connecting to the cloud from wherever you are fails, your business stops. And we see that through load shedding. How many times have you been out through load shedding and you pop in to get a coffee at Seattle and the LTE's down and you can't pay for the coffee, you have to pay cash. You can't use your card because the card machines are all down because the networks are down. So I mean, that is the main reason. I mean, it's about the full cloud strategy. It means we've gone through COVID. People have looked at remote working. And in order to operate an organization where you've got an element of remote virtualization of your workforce, you're saving costs on facilities. You need reliable connectivity, and it's all about that strategy. And connectivity goes hand in hand with your cloud strategy.
Absolutely fascinating, Iain, and I think that you've really highlighted the importance. Everybody talks about redundancy, and we've got redundancy, but what kind of redundancy have you got? That's what you need to question. And if one element of your connectivity goes down, is your redundancy going to suffice? And how reliable is that redundancy? And it's important to look at it to make sure, especially if you're in the enterprise space, that you really have the right connectivity solutions to be able to allow your business to continue as usual. Iain Stevenson, the CEO at Comsol, thank you so much for highlighting this very important conversation, because This is something that happens to me as you were talking about, buying a simple coffee, being in a well-known chain and not being able to transact just because the connectivity wasn't there. How critical it is to make sure that you have the right connectivity solutions in place in your enterprise. Thank you for joining us, Iain.
Thank you, Aki.